Story 1. The Last Show. The lights of the carnival spun around me as I made my rounds. 3 nights on security had taught me the rhythms of this traveling show. I knew which carnies to watch, which rides barely passed inspection, and which corners attracted the wrong sort of crowd. "Hey, Marcus, got a minute?" Vince, the carnival owner's son, jogged over, flashing his usual smug grin. "Just making my rounds," I said, checking my watch. 11:30, half an hour until closing. "Dad wants you to check the House of Mirrors. Some kid said he saw something weird in there." Vince shrugged. "Probably nothing, but you know how Dad is about complaints." I nodded and headed over. The cheerful music faded behind me as I approached the attraction. The House of Mirrors stood at the edge of the grounds, its painted facade peeling, the lights flickering. The door creaked as I pushed it open. "Hello, anyone in here?" My voice echoed back at me from a dozen angles. I clicked on my flashlight, the beam shattering and multiplying across endless glass. It smelled musty, like old carpet after a flood. I moved slowly through the maze, checking for vandalism or teens hiding out. My own reflection multiplied around me, a kaleidoscope of uniforms and tired eyes. Then I noticed something off. One reflection lagged behind my movements, just a half-second late. I froze, watching it. Just a trick of the light, I told myself. Deeper in, I found small red handprints smeared on a mirror. Paint, maybe? I touched one, still wet. My radio crackled. "Marcus, you there?" Vince's voice. "Yeah, in the House of Mirrors. Found some red stuff on the glass. Might be paint, might be..." "Listen, get out of there now." His voice had lost its usual arrogance. "Dad just told me. The last security guard who worked there." The radio went dead. I tapped it. Nothing. That's when I heard breathing that wasn't mine. I spun around. Nothing but my own reflection staring back. No, not all of them were mine. In one mirror, my reflection smiled when I wasn't smiling. I backed away, bumping into another mirror. The exit had to be close. I turned and ran, but every path looked the same. A narrow corridor appeared where I swore there hadn't been one before. At its end was a door marked "Staff Only." I tried the handle locked. Then I smelled it. Metallic, sharp, like blood. My flashlight swept the floor. Red streaks led under the door. I shouldered it open. Inside was a small room, a desk, a chair, and a stack of newspapers. The headline on top read, "Carnival Worker Missing. Police Suspect Foul Play." The date was 2 years ago. Beneath it, another. "Second disappearance at Traveling Carnival." Then another. All from different towns, but always the same carnival. A noise behind me made me whirl. The door had swung closed. Vince stood in the doorway, something gleaming in his hand. "You know, Marcus," he said, "the carnival needs fresh attractions. People get bored seeing the same old things." He gestured to a curtain at the back of the room. "Dad's been experimenting." I lunged for the door, but Vince was quicker. Pain exploded in my side. I collapsed. "Nothing personal," Vince said. "Just family business." As my vision blurred, he pulled back the curtain, revealing a workshop. On a table lay what I thought was a mannequin. Until I saw it blink. The last thing I heard was Vince's voice, almost gentle. "The House of Mirrors needs a new reflection." 3 days later, when they hired my replacement, I tried to warn him with my eyes, but all he saw was his own reflection, following his movements just a half-second too late. Story 2. The Photographer. I've always had an eye for the perfect shot. That's what made me good at my job. Finding the angles, the moments that told a story in a single frame. Working as a freelance photographer for the local paper had its perks, especially when the carnival came to town. "Get some good shots of people having fun," my editor said. "Front page, weekend section." The carnival sprawled across the county fairgrounds, a maze of rides, games, and food stands. I arrived late afternoon, golden hour perfect for capturing joy on children's faces, the pride of teenagers winning prizes, the glow of lights flickering on as dusk fell. I was lining up a shot of a girl getting cotton candy when someone bumped into me. "Sorry," said a man in a worn denim jacket. "You're with the paper?" He nodded at my press badge. "Yeah, just getting shots for the weekend edition." "I'm Curtis. I run the portrait booth." He gestured to a faded tent. "If you want real stories, come by later, around closing." There was something in his tone that stuck with me. After I'd finished my assignment, I wandered back to Curtis's booth as the carnival was winding down. The tent was dim, decorated with sample portraits, families smiling, couples embracing. Typical, but the quality was striking. "You came," Curtis said, emerging from behind a curtain. "I was hoping you would. You said something about stories?" He nodded, eyes glinting in the low light. Every photographer knows the camera captures more than just what's visible. He beckoned me behind the curtain. The back room was a makeshift dark room. Prints hung from lines overhead, but these weren't the cheerful portraits from the front. These showed carnival goers with twisted expressions. A mother clutching her child too tightly, fear in her eyes. A teenage boy's smile that didn't reach his eyes. Something predatory lurking beneath. A man stealing from a cash box. A carnival worker slipping something into a girl's drink. "What am I looking at?" I asked, unsettled. "The truth." Curtis handed me a stack of photos. "I've traveled with carnivals for 15 years. Every town I take portraits. Every town I see the same things." He flipped to a group shot of the staff. Everyone smiled except one man in the back, his face twisted in pain. "That's Sam. He disappeared 3 days after this was taken." Curtis tapped the photo. "Look at the man next to him." The carnival owner, hand clamped on Sam's shoulder, fingers digging in too hard. "I've got 5 years of staff photos, 17 people missing from the next year's photo, 17 no one ever reported missing. If you suspect something, why not go to the police?" Curtis laughed bitterly. "With what? Photographs? Carnivals move, jurisdictions change. No one connects the dots." He pulled out one last photo, handed it to me. It was from this carnival, time-stamped yesterday. My editor talking with the carnival owner. An envelope changing hands. "Your papers covered the carnival for years, never a bad word." My mouth went dry. "What do you want me to do?" "What you do best, tell the story." Curtis packed the photos into a manila envelope. "Take these, my insurance policy, if you will." I tucked the envelope into my camera bag and left, suddenly eager to be anywhere else. "I'll look into it," I promised. "Come back tomorrow if you have questions. I'm here till Sunday." But the next day, Curtis's booth was gone. In its place, a funnel cake stand that looked like it had been there all week. "The portrait booth?" The ticket seller shrugged. "Haven't had one of those in years, not since phones killed the business." I tried to show her a picture I'd taken of Curtis, but every photo from the carnival was corrupted. That night, I opened the manila envelope. It was empty. My phone rang my editor. "Carnival's staying another week, need more shots tomorrow." I declined. I gave notice the next day. Sometimes I still take photographs, but only landscapes now. Never people. People lie, even to the camera, especially at carnivals where everyone wears a mask and some never take them off. I never found out what happened to Curtis, but sometimes in crowd shots I take for other papers, I think I see him in the background, watching, waiting for someone else with an eye for the truth. Story 3. The Contest. I should have walked away when I saw the prize money. $10,000 for eating 6 pounds of carnival food in 30 minutes? That kind of cash doesn't come without strings attached. But I needed that money. Rent was due, my car needed repairs, and my warehouse job wasn't cutting it. So when I saw the flyer for the Ultimate Carnival Food Challenge at the traveling fair, I signed up immediately. "You're the last contestant," said the woman taking my information. Her name tag read Gloria, and she had that permanently cheerful look of someone who'd been in customer service too long. Competition starts in an hour at the main stage. While waiting, I wandered around the carnival. It was one of those traveling operations that appeared overnight in vacant lots rides held together with duct tape and prayer. Games where you never quite won the big prize, and food stands selling deep-fried everything. The contest area was a raised platform with 6 tables. A crowd had already gathered, mostly sunburned tourists and locals looking for free entertainment. A large man in a ringmaster's outfit took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ultimate Carnival Food Challenge." His voice boomed without a microphone. 6 contestants, 6 food mountains. One winner takes home $10,000. The crowd cheered as we contestants were called up. Besides me, there was a college kid with a metabolism I immediately envied. A large, bearded man who looked like he'd done this before. A thin woman who couldn't have weighed more than 100 pounds. A middle-aged guy with a determined expression, and a muscular guy who kept flexing for the crowd. We each took our seats. In front of us were covered platters. "The rules are simple," the ringmaster announced. "Eat everything on your plate in 30 minutes. Last person still eating, or first to finish wins the cash." At his signal, the covers were lifted, revealing what can only be described as nightmare fuel for nutritionists. Funnel cakes dripping with syrup, corn dogs, deep-fried butter, chocolate-covered bacon, chili cheese fries, fried ice cream melting into cotton candy, caramel apples covered in nuts, and things I couldn't even identify. "Begin!" the ringmaster shouted. I started strategically, going for the melting items first. The college kid was inhaling his food like he had a separate stomach. The bearded man methodically worked through his pile. 10 minutes in, the thin woman was already looking green. By 15 minutes, she rushed off stage, hand over her mouth. The crowd's sympathetic ahs quickly turned to cheers as the competition continued. The middle-aged guy was next to go, clutching his chest. At first, I thought he was having heartburn, but when security rushed him off stage, I realized it was something worse. No one in the crowd seemed concerned. They were too caught up in the spectacle. 20 minutes in, my stomach felt stretched to its limit. Every bite was torture. The muscular guy gave up next, pushing his plate away in defeat. It was down to me, the college kid, and the bearded man. The ringmaster circled us like a shark. "Looks like we have some real competitors," he announced. "But we need a winner. Let's make this interesting." Servers brought out another round of food, this time spicier, greasier, more elaborate concoctions. My stomach lurched in protest. The college kid's face was slick with sweat, but he kept eating mechanically. The bearded man hadn't slowed down at all. With 5 minutes left, I noticed something odd. The bearded man wasn't swallowing. He was somehow making the food disappear, but his throat wasn't moving. When the ringmaster wasn't looking, he would slip something under the table. I glanced down and nearly gagged. There was a bag between his feet, and he was quietly depositing food into it. I caught his eye. He gave me a small headshake, a warning to keep quiet. The college kid suddenly slumped forward, face planting into his remaining food. Medical staff quickly removed him as the crowd gasped. Now, it was just me and the cheater. My stomach felt like it would burst, but the money kept me going. One more bite, then another. With 1 minute left, the bearded man suddenly stood up. "I can't do it," he announced dramatically. "This young man has beaten me." The crowd erupted in cheers. I was confused but relieved. The ringmaster declared me the winner, and stagehands brought out a large check. Camera flashes blinded me as I posed with my prize. Afterward, as I was leaving, the bearded man approached me. "Good job, kid," he said, patting my shoulder. "Don't spend it all in one place." "Why did you throw the competition?" I asked. His smile faltered. "I won last week in Springfield, and the week before in Oakdale." "You work for the Carnival?" I realized. "Not exactly." He leaned closer. "Check your bank account in 3 days. If the money's there, count yourself lucky and never enter one of these contests again. And if it's not, then I saved your life." He glanced toward the medical tent. "That kid who passed out, the man who clutched his chest, they won last month. Some contest you don't want to win." He walked away before I could ask more questions. 3 days later, the money appeared in my account. I paid my rent and fixed my car. A week after that, I saw a news story about a food poisoning outbreak at a carnival one town over. Several people hospitalized. 2 deaths. One of them was the bearded man. I still don't know what game they were playing. Maybe they needed a local face to legitimize their contest. Maybe there was something in the food they gave the winners, something that would have affected me later. All I know is I can't stomach carnival food anymore, and every time I see a traveling show setting up in a vacant lot, I drive the other way. Some prizes cost more than you're willing to pay. Story 4. The Ride Operator. First day on the job? I looked up to see a weathered man in his 60s, his skin leathery from years in the sun. His Carnival staff shirt was faded, like he'd been wearing it for decades. That obvious, huh? I laughed nervously, fiddling with the control panel of the Gravitron. At 22, I needed cash before the fall semester, and traveling with the Carnival for the summer seemed like an adventure. "I'm Dale," he said, extending a calloused hand. "Been running the Tilt-A-Whirl for 30 years. If you need anything, I'm 3 rides down." The first few days were a blur of training, learning how to operate the ride safely, spotting trouble before it started, dealing with drunk teenagers trying to break the rules. By the end of the week, I felt like I'd found my rhythm. That's when I noticed the man. Tall, thin, always wearing the same black jacket despite the summer heat. He came every night, always alone, always watching my ride without ever getting on. "Hey Dale," I asked during our break. "You know that guy in the black jacket? He's here every night." Dale's expression darkened. "Stay away from him." "Why? Is he dangerous?" "Just keep your head down and do your job. 2 more weeks, and we're in the next town." But the man was there the next night too, and the night after that, always watching, never approaching. I started feeling uneasy every time I spotted him in the crowd. Then came the night of the accident. A mechanical failure on the Ferris wheel sent 2 teenagers to the hospital. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to shut down operations early. The Carnival emptied quickly, leaving just staff to secure everything. I was covering the Gravitron's control panel with a tarp when I felt someone behind me. "Nice machine you've got here." It was him, the man in the black jacket. Up close, his face was oddly smooth, ageless. "Mind if I take a ride?" "We're closed," I said, trying to sound authoritative. "Accident on the Ferris wheel." "I know, unfortunate." He smiled, revealing 2 perfect teeth. "But your ride is fine, just 1 quick spin." Something about his voice made it hard to refuse. I guess one wouldn't hurt. He climbed into the empty Gravitron, taking a spot against the wall. I hesitated, then started the sequence. The ride began to spin, slowly at first, then faster. The centrifugal force would soon pin him against the wall as the floor dropped away. Through the observation window, I watched him. Unlike most riders who pressed back against the wall, he leaned forward, fighting the force, his eyes locked on mine. The ride reached full speed. The floor should have dropped away. It didn't. I hit the emergency stop. Nothing happened. The ride kept spinning, faster now than it should be capable of. That's when I noticed the other control panel, a ghostly duplicate overlaid on my own, hands that weren't mine adjusting settings. Panicking, I ran to the circuit breaker and cut all power to the ride. The lights went out, but the Gravitron continued spinning in the darkness, the whine of its motor changing to something that sounded almost like laughter. I grabbed my phone to call for help, but there was no signal. When I looked up, Dale was there, a crowbar in his hand. "Get back," he ordered, forcing open the operator's entrance to the ride. Together, we watched the Gravitron slow on its own until it finally stopped. The man in the black jacket was gone. "Where did he go?" I asked, checking every compartment of the now-still ride. Dale's face was grim. He got what he wanted. Which was what? A taste, Dale sighed, suddenly looking older than his years. Every carnival has one. They feed on fear, on the rush people get from these rides. Usually they just blend in with the crowd, take what they need. But sometimes they get greedy. "What are you talking about?" Dale pointed to the control panel. It was fried. Components melted. Too much energy drawn too fast. He wasn't just riding, he was feeding. I thought he was crazy, but then I saw it. A handprint seared into the metal wall of the gravitron. The metal warped like it had been subjected to impossible heat. The accident at the Ferris wheel, I said slowly. Was that him too? Dale nodded. Creating a distraction, clearing out the crowd so he could feed without witnesses. Why are you telling me this? Because he marked you. Dale pointed to my arm. There was a burn there in the shape of fingerprints where the man had brushed against me. He'll be back for you now. We left town the next day, the gravitron mysteriously repaired overnight. I insisted on switching to a different ride, but Dale said it wouldn't matter. For the rest of the summer, I felt watched. Customers who looked too long at my ride. People who seemed to appear and disappear in crowds. Once, I swear, I saw the man in the black jacket in a mirror's reflection, but when I turned around, no one was there. The season ended, and I returned to college, convinced I'd imagined it all, a product of exhaustion and Dale's superstition. Until today, walking across campus, I saw a flyer, Carnival coming next weekend. And there, standing behind the bulletin board, was a tall figure in a black jacket, smiling that too-perfect smile. I'm writing this as a warning. If you go to a carnival and see a man in a black jacket who never rides, who just watches, leave immediately. He's not there for the attractions. He's there for you. Story, Hun. 5. The Clown Room. I only took the job because I was desperate. Rent was due, my car had broken down, and my girlfriend had just left me. When I saw the ad for night security at the traveling carnival, the pay seemed too good to pass up. It's just the off-season storage facility, the manager explained as he handed me the keys. Nothing fancy, but we keep all our equipment here when we're not on the road. Just make sure nobody breaks in. The warehouse sat on the outskirts of town, a massive corrugated metal building surrounded by overgrown fields. During my first walkthrough, I noted the usual carnival equipment. Dismantled rides, game booths, boxes of stuffed animals, and maintenance supplies. But it was the room at the back that made me uneasy. What's in there? I asked, pointing to a heavy door with multiple locks. Props room, the manager said dismissively. Costumes, masks, that sort of thing. Keep it locked. Some of that stuff is antique, worth a fortune to collectors. My shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The first few nights were uneventful, just me, my flashlight, and the occasional scurrying of mice. I'd make my rounds every hour, check the perimeter, then return to the small office to watch videos on my phone. On the fourth night, I heard music. It was faint at first, like a distant ice cream truck. I grabbed my flashlight and followed the sound through the dark warehouse. The music grew louder as I approached the props room, a tinny, off-key calliope melody that made the hair on my neck stand up. The door was still locked. I pressed my ear against it and heard nothing. When I stepped away, the music started again, now seeming to come from a different direction entirely. I spent an hour searching for its source, but found nothing. When I returned to the office, the music had stopped. The next night, I brought a book to help pass the time. Around 2 a.m., during my rounds, I noticed something odd. The props room door was ajar. I was certain I hadn't opened it. I didn't even have that key. Cautiously, I pushed the door open with my foot. The smell hit me first. Grease paint and old fabric with underlying mustiness. My flashlight revealed rows of shelves holding masks, costumes, and puppets. In the center of the room stood several mannequins dressed as clowns. I've never been afraid of clowns, but something about these was unsettling. Their faces were detailed, almost lifelike, with expressions that seemed too knowing. I approached one, a tall figure in a purple suit with an exaggerated frown. Its eyes were glass, reflecting my flashlight beam back at me. Just props, I muttered to myself, turning to leave. That's when I noticed one of the clown mannequins was missing from its stand. I did a quick count. There should have been 6, according to the numbered platforms. I could only see 5. I backed out of the room, locked the door, and completed my rounds at double speed. For the rest of the night, I stayed in the office watching the security cameras. Nothing moved in the warehouse. When my replacement arrived at 6 a.m., I asked about the props room. "Oh, you went in there?" He looked surprised. "Manager doesn't like anyone messing with that stuff. Those clowns are from the original Carnival back in the 30s. Hand-carved." "There's one missing," I said. He shrugged. "Probably being repaired. They rotate them out sometimes." I tried to put it out of my mind, but throughout the day as I tried to sleep in my apartment, I kept seeing that empty platform. That night, I brought a camera. I wanted a documentation of whatever was happening. My first stop was the props room. This time, I counted carefully. 6 clowns. All platforms occupied. I took photos of each one, then locked the door and continued my rounds. Every hour, I checked the props room again. Nothing changed until 3 a.m. When I opened the door for my hourly check, the smell of grease paint was overpowering. All 6 clowns were there, but they had moved. Not dramatically, just slight changes in posture, in the tilt of a head or the angle of an arm. I took more photos, my hands shaking. When I compared them to the earlier shots, the differences were undeniable. The purple-suited clown that had been facing left was now facing the door. Another's arms had shifted from being at its sides to being crossed over its chest. I locked the door and called the manager. "The props are moving," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a long pause. "Are any of them missing?" The question chilled me. "No, they're all there, but they've changed positions." "Stay out of that room," he said firmly. "Finish your shift and we'll discuss this tomorrow." I returned to the office, watching the clock crawl toward morning. At 5 a.m., I heard the music again, that same tinny calliope melody. It seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Against my better judgment, I went to check the props room one last time. The door was open. All the clowns were in their places except the one in the purple suit. Its platform was empty. I swept my flashlight around the dark room, heart hammering. Nothing. Then I heard it. A soft, shuffling step behind me. I spun around. The purple-suited clown stood in the doorway, blocking my exit. Up close, I could see the cracks in its painted face, the yellowed teeth behind its frown, and the eyes, no longer glass but wet and alive, watching me. It tilted its head, the movement accompanied by the faint creak of wood. "You're not supposed to be in here," it said, its voice like rustling paper. "This isn't your room." I raised my camera and took a photo. The flash momentarily blinded me. When my vision cleared, the doorway was empty. I ran, not stopping until I reached the office where I locked the door and called the manager again. "I quit," I said as soon as he answered. "Did you go back to the props room?" he asked, sounding resigned. "The purple one. It spoke to me." He sighed. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't leave the office." True to his word, he arrived before my shift ended. He looked exhausted, like he'd been through this before. "Show me the photos," he said. I handed him my camera. He scrolled through them, nodding grimly. "You saw Philip," he said finally. "The purple one. He's particular about who enters his room." "They're props," I insisted. "Mannequins." The manager gave me a sad smile. The original owner of this carnival had unusual methods for ensuring loyalty. The clowns were once real people performers who tried to leave. He handed back my camera. "We take care of them now. Keep them comfortable." I stared at him, wondering if this was some sick joke. "Your final paycheck will include 2 weeks' severance," he continued, "in exchange for your silence and your camera." I handed over the camera without argument, took the check he offered, and left. I never went back to that warehouse, never attended another carnival. But sometimes, on quiet nights, I hear that calliope music drifting through my window, and in my dreams, I see that purple-suited clown, head tilted, watching me with those 2 alive eyes, waiting for me to join the show. Story 6. The Knife Thrower. I never should have volunteered. That's what I keep telling myself as the doctor examines my eye, or what's left of it. The carnival seemed harmless enough when my buddies and I stumbled in, 3 beers deep and looking for excitement in our otherwise dull small town. "Ladies and gentlemen," the barker's voice cut through the night air, "witness the extraordinary talents of Giovanni the Great, master of the blade." The crowd parted as a tall man in a crimson vest strode to the center of a small stage. His assistant, a young woman in a sequined leotard, smiled nervously as she took her position against a large wooden board. The knife thrower went through his routine blades whistling through the air, thudding into the wood mere inches from the woman's body. The crowd gasped and applauded with each throw. "Now," Giovanni announced, scanning the audience, "I require a brave volunteer." My friends pushed me forward, laughing. "Mark'll do it. He's fearless." I wasn't fearless, just drunk enough not to care. I climbed onto the stage, the crowd cheering. "What's your name, young man?" Giovanni asked, his accent thicker up close. "Mark," I replied, suddenly aware of how sharp the knives looked under the stage lights. "Perfect. Mark here will demonstrate his courage." Giovanni gestured to the board. "Stand with your back against the wood, arms outstretched." As I took my position, I noticed something odd, small dark stains on the board that looked suspiciously like dried blood. Before I could reconsider, the assistant strapped my wrists and ankles to the board. "Is this necessary?" I asked, tugging at the restraints. "Absolutely," Giovanni replied. "Cannot have you flinching, yes? Very dangerous." He stepped back, selecting a knife from his collection. The blade caught the light as he tested its weight. The crowd grew silent. "For my first throw," Giovanni announced, "I will place this knife 1 inch from Mark's left ear." He turned his back to me, a showman's gesture to prove he wasn't looking. When he spun around, the knife was already flying. I felt the air displacement as it embedded itself into the wood beside my head. The crowd roared. My friends hooted and cheered. I managed a weak smile, heart hammering in my chest. "For my next trick," Giovanni continued, "I will place a knife between our volunteer's fingers." Another throw, another perfect landing. The knife quivered between my index and middle fingers. With each successive throw, Giovanni moved closer to vital areas, my neck, my chest, between my legs. Each time, the blade landed with precision, never touching me but close enough that I could feel the cold steel against my skin. Then came the blindfold. "For my final feat," Giovanni announced, tying a black cloth over his eyes, "I will outline our brave volunteer's face with 5 knives, thrown simultaneously." The assistant handed him 5 blades, which he fanned between his fingers like playing cards. The crowd fell silent. I wanted to protest, to demand release, but pride kept me quiet. I couldn't back out now, not with everyone watching. Giovanni took a deep breath. I closed my eyes. The sound of metal cutting through air was followed by sharp impacts around my head. The crowd gasped, then erupted into applause. When I opened my eyes, Giovanni was bowing. The assistant began undoing my restraints. "Incredible performance," she whispered. "He's never used a live volunteer before." I froze. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer. Just helped me off the stage as the crowd continued applauding. My friends surrounded me, clapping my back, impressed by my bravery. We stayed for another hour, riding rides and playing games, the knife-throwing incident becoming just another drunken story. Oh, it wasn't until we were leaving that I noticed Giovanni standing by the exit watching me. When our eyes met, he gave a slight nod, as if acknowledging something only he understood. That night, I dreamed of knives, dozens of them flying toward me, their points gleaming. I woke up sweating, my heart racing. The next day, I found a small nick on my earlobe that hadn't been there before. Nothing serious, just a tiny cut that might have happened during a shave. Except I hadn't shaved. 3 days later, I noticed Giovanni at a local diner. He sat alone, drinking coffee, but his eyes followed me as I walked past. I pretended not to notice. A week after the carnival left town, I woke up to find a knife stuck in my bedroom wall. No signs of forced entry, no explanation for how it got there. Just a blade identical to the ones Giovanni had thrown, embedded in the plaster above my bed. I went to the police, but without evidence of a threat, they could do nothing. Probably just a prank, they said. Your friends messing with you. But my friends denied any involvement, and the knives kept appearing in my car, on my desk at work, outside my apartment door. I started seeing Giovanni everywhere at the grocery store, across the street from my apartment, in the reflection of windows as I walked past, always watching, always with that same knowing smile. I changed my locks, installed security cameras, even stayed with a friend for a few days. Nothing helped. The knives continued to appear, and with them, small cards emblazoned with the Carnival's logo and a date 3 months from the night I'd volunteered. "He's marked you," said a woman's voice behind me at the convenience store. I turned to find the assistant from the knife-throwing act. She looked different without the makeup and sequins. Younger, more vulnerable. "What do you mean?" I asked, glancing around to make sure we were alone. "Giovanni doesn't use volunteers because he doesn't need to. The act is real. He really can't throw blindfolded. But he prefers targets that don't move." My blood ran cold. "Are you saying—" "The carnival returns here in 3 months," she interrupted. "He'll expect you to be there. If you're not—" She glanced at the knife I'd found that morning. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I was a volunteer once, too." She pulled back her hair to reveal a long scar running from her ear to her collarbone. "Not everyone has your luck." She gave me an address before disappearing into the night. A man in Arizona who might help. I drove there the next day, desperate for answers. The man lived in a trailer at the edge of the desert. His hands shook as he poured us coffee, and when he rolled up his sleeves, I saw dozens of thin scars crisscrossing his arms. "Giovanni found me in '97, he explained. "I thought it was just a carnival act. Didn't realize I was being hunted." According to him, Giovanni wasn't just a knife thrower. He was a collector of fear. He marked his victims, tracked them, fed off their growing terror before completing his collection when the carnival returned. "How do I stop him?" I asked. The man's laugh was hollow. "You don't. You run, or you prepare to fight. Either way, he won't stop until he takes what he wants." "Which is what?" "A piece of you." He tapped the patch over his left eye. "He has a collection." I returned home determined to end this. I installed more cameras, bought a gun, and waited. The knives continued to appear, but now I studied them, looking for patterns, for weaknesses in his approach. 2 weeks before the carnival was due to return, I found Giovanni standing in my living room at 3 a.m. "How did you get in?" I demanded, the gun steady in my hand. He smiled, unafraid. "You invited me in the moment you stepped onto my stage." "What do you want from me?" "Just a small contribution." He gestured to his own eye. "An eye for art, yes? You have the perfect gaze, fear mixed with defiance. It will make a beautiful addition." I fired. The bullet passed through him as if he were smoke. His laughter echoed around me. "You cannot kill what feeds on fear, but perhaps we can negotiate. Bring me a replacement, and I will release you from our contract." "I'm not bringing you anyone," I spat. "Then I will see you at the carnival." He vanished, leaving only a knife embedded in my coffee table. The night the carnival returned, I had a choice: run or face him. I chose to fight. I went to the carnival armed with knowledge and determination. Giovanni's tent was set up exactly as before, but this time I wasn't going up on stage. I had another plan. I waited until his performance was over, then followed him to his trailer. He was waiting for me. "So brave," he said, admiring. "Most run." "I want to understand," I said. Before it happens. Why do you do this?" He gestured me inside. The walls of his trailer were covered with small glass containers, each holding what looked like preserved eyes floating in clear liquid, each labeled with a name and date. "Art requires sacrifice," Giovanni explained. Each one freely given, in its own way. Fear makes the colors more vivid, don't you think? While he was distracted, showing off his collection, I made my move. Not with violence that had already failed, but with a mirror I pulled from my jacket. I positioned it between us, reflecting his own gaze back at him. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his expression changed from confidence to confusion. "What is this?" he demanded, trying to look away from his own reflection but seemingly unable to. "You feed on fear," I said. "What happens when you taste your own?" His face contorted as he fought against the mirror's pull. I don't know if it was the mirror itself or the psychological impact of confronting his own predatory nature, but something worked. He began to age before my eyes, his skin wrinkling, hair whitening. "You cannot," he gasped, reaching for me with hands that now trembled with age. "The contract is broken," I finished, backing toward the door. I left him there, staring at his reflection, trapped in a loop of his own fear. I don't know if he escaped or if he's still there, withering away. The carnival left town the next day. The knives stopped appearing. For a while, I thought it was over. Until I started seeing my reflection watching me when I wasn't moving. Until I found myself collecting sharp objects without remembering why. Until I started seeing the fear in others' eyes and finding it beautiful. I write this as a warning. If you attend a carnival and see a knife-throwing act asking for volunteers, walk away. No matter how harmless it seems, no matter how much your friends encourage you. Some performances never end, and sometimes, when you stare into the abyss of another's obsession, it doesn't just stare back. It follows you home. Story 7. The Cotton Candy Vendor. The little girl couldn't have been more than 6. Pink dress, pigtails, wide eyes staring up at the cotton candy machine as if it were magic. Which, I suppose, to a kid, it is. Sugar transformed into fluffy clouds of sweetness. "What color would you like, sweetheart?" I asked, already reaching for the pink. Kids usually want pink. She pointed to the blue instead, surprising me. Her mother stood behind her, distracted, typing on her phone. "Blue it is," I said, swirling the wooden stick into the spinning sugar strands. I'd been working the cotton candy stand at this traveling carnival for 3 weeks now. Just a summer job to earn some cash before heading back to college. Nothing complicated about it. The girl took her cotton candy with both hands, treating it like something precious. No, thank you, but I didn't mind. Kids get overwhelmed at carnivals. "That'll be $5, I told the mother. She handed me a crumpled bill without looking up from her phone, then grabbed her daughter's free hand and disappeared into the crowd. My shift ended at 11 p.m. The carnival was winding down, families replaced by teenagers and couples on the Ferris wheel. I was just about to close up when I noticed her, the same little girl in the pink dress standing alone near my stand. "Hey there," I called over. "Are you lost?" She didn't respond, just stared at me with those same wide eyes. The cotton candy I'd given her earlier was gone, not even the stick remained. I stepped out from behind the counter. "Where's your mom?" Still no answer. As I got closer, I noticed something odd. Her face was smeared with blue. Not just around her mouth, which would be normal for a kid with cotton candy, but all around her eyes, too, like she'd been crying blue tears. "Let's find your mom, okay?" I reached for her hand, but she backed away, shaking her head. "More," she finally said, pointing at the cotton candy machine. "I'm closed now, but let's find your parents first. Then maybe they can buy you more tomorrow." "More?" Her voice had changed, deeper now, insistent. A shiver ran down my spine. Something was wrong with this kid. "What's your name?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "Lily," she said, her voice normal again. "I want more blue, please." Against my better judgment, I went back to the machine. "Okay, Lily, one more blue cotton candy and then we're finding your mom." I fired up the machine again, watching her from the corner of my eye. She stood perfectly still, following only my hands with her gaze. When I handed her the fresh cotton candy, our fingers touched. Hers were ice cold. "Thank you," she said, and began to eat. Not in the way kids usually do, picking off pieces delicately, but by shoving large chunks into her mouth, barely chewing before swallowing. "Slow down," I warned. "You'll get sick." She ignored me, devouring the blue fluff until it was gone. Then she looked up at me, and I stumbled backward. Her eyes had changed color. The whites now tinged blue. "Lily, are you feeling okay?" I asked, reaching for my phone. This kid needed medical attention. "I need more," she said. The blue around her eyes was spreading, veining out across her pale skin. The blue makes it quiet. Makes what quiet? The hunger. Before I could respond, a frantic woman pushed through the thinning crowd. "Lily, there you are!" It was her mother. Phone nowhere in sight now, face etched with worry. "I've been looking everywhere." The girl turned, and for a split second I thought I saw something move beneath her skin, a rippling, like muscles shifting in ways they shouldn't. "She came back for more cotton candy," I explained, trying to sound normal despite my racing heart. "I was just about to help her find you." The mother grabbed Lily's hand. "Thank you." I turned around in the crowd and she was just gone. She looked down at her daughter. "Lily, you know better than to wander off." Lily stared at me, not responding to her mother. "She ate quite a bit of cotton candy," I said. "Might want to watch for a sugar crash." The mother nodded, already pulling Lily away. "Say thank you to the nice man, Lily." Lily kept her eyes on me. "I'll be back tomorrow," she said, for more blue. After they left, I shut down the stand quickly, my hands shaking. I told myself I was being ridiculous. She was just a weird kid, that's all. The blue eyes were probably just a trick of the carnival lights. The next day, I arrived early to restock. The manager stopped by my stand. "Hey, heard you had a late customer last night," he said casually. "Yeah, little girl wanted more cotton candy. Her mom had lost track of her." He nodded slowly. "Little girl in a pink dress? Pigtails? That's the one. Lily." His face paled. "Listen, if she comes back, call security immediately. Don't serve her." "Why? What's wrong?" He hesitated. "Just trust me on this. We've had problems with her before." Throughout the day, I kept an eye out for Lily, but she didn't show up. By evening, I'd convinced myself the manager was overreacting, and my own unease had been imagination. Then, just before closing, she appeared again. Same pink dress, same pigtails. But something was different. Her skin seemed paler, almost translucent in the carnival lights. "Hi, Lily," I said cautiously. "Is your mom with you?" She shook her head. "Blue, please." I remembered the manager's warning. "I can't give you any unless your mom's here. Do you know where she is?" "She's sleeping." Lily stepped closer to the counter. "The blue helps me. Please." "I'm sorry, but I can't. Please." Her voice cracked, desperation bleeding through. "It hurts." Against all better judgment, I made her a cotton candy. "Here. But then we're finding security to help locate your mom." She snatched it from me, devouring it like she had the night before. This time, I watched more carefully. The blue sugar seemed to disappear into her mouth without her actually swallowing. When she finished, she looked up at me. The blue had spread further across her face, webbing out from her eyes across her cheeks. "One more," she pleaded. "It's not enough." I reached for my phone. "Lily, I'm calling for help. Something's wrong, and you need—" She moved faster than I could track, vaulting over the counter and grabbing my arm. Her touch burned cold through my shirt sleeve. "Don't," she hissed. "I just need more blue. Then I'll go." Up close, I could see that what I'd thought was blue sugar staining her skin was actually something beneath it. Blue veins pulsing unnaturally bright. I yanked my arm free and backed away. "What are you?" Her face contorted, the skin stretching in impossible ways. "Hungry," she whispered. Before I could run, security arrived. The manager had been watching from a distance. "Step away from her," he told me firmly. To Lily, he said, "We've talked about this. You can't keep coming back." Lily hissed, an inhuman sound that raised the hair on my arms. "Last summer, it was the caramel apples," the manager continued calmly. "Before that, the frozen lemonade. We can't help you." "The blue makes it stop," Lily screamed, her voice reverberating unnaturally. "It makes the hunger stop." "I know," the manager said, his tone softening, "but it's only temporary, and you're changing." Lily looked at her own hands, seeming to notice for the first time the blue veins spreading across them. "I don't want to be like the others," she whispered, "in the dark under the carnival." The manager stepped forward, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small vial of blue powder. "This is the last time, Lily. After this, you can't come back. Do you understand?" She nodded, reaching for the vial with trembling hands. "What is that?" I asked. "What's happening to her?" "Sugar mixed with copper sulfate," he replied quietly. "Poisonous to humans. But she's not exactly human anymore." Lily consumed the powder in one quick motion, tilting her head back and pouring it down her throat. Almost immediately, her body began to change, the blue veins receding, her skin becoming less transparent. "What do you mean, not human?" I demanded. The manager sighed. "Carnivals attract all kinds of lost souls. Some are just older than others. Hungrier." He nodded towards Lily, who now looked almost normal again. "She's been following this carnival for decades. Different name each time, different face. But always a little girl, always alone, always hungry. For cotton candy, for what's in it, the chemicals, the dyes. Different cravings each time she returns. We try to help when we can, but eventually..." Lily looked up at the manager. "Thank you," she said, her voice childlike again. Then she turned to me. "I'm sorry I scared you." Before I could respond, she walked away, disappearing between two game booths. "She won't be back this season," the manager said. "The copper sulfate will keep her dormant for a while." "What is she?" I asked again. "Something that feeds on joy," he replied. "On the energy of places like this. The sugar and chemicals are just a substitute, but an addictive one. They change her, little by little." I quit that night, packed up my things and left the carnival behind. Tried to convince myself it was all some elaborate prank. But sometimes, when I pass a cotton candy machine or see a little girl in a pink dress, I remember Lily and her hungry, blue-veined face, and I wonder how many other creatures feed on our happiness, hiding in plain sight, consuming what we discard without a thought. I never eat blue cotton candy anymore, and I never, ever go to carnivals after dark. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more horror stories on Moonlit Scarecrow.